Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a little bit of a debate here. What is the best way to multiply larger numbers, such as two-digit numbers? A couple of different strategies we're going to look at. In fact, we're going to look at three, and then you need to decide which one is the best one. So our first strategy, or strategy number one, is to break up the number. So the first thing I notice here is I notice that 23 is a pretty easy number to work with. What do I know about 23? I know that 23 is simply two tens and a 3. So the purpose of this strategy is to just break up one of the two-digit numbers, whichever one is easier to work with, into some one-digit numbers or something that's really easy to work with, like 10s or 20s. And then I've got a pretty easy go at it here. I have 10 times 57 twice, and I have 3 times 57. I know that 10 times 57 is 570, so we're going to write that in. And finally, I know that 3 times 57, well, that's 21 plus 3 times 50, 150, so 171. And now I can go ahead and I can add these ups. My ones is 1. 3 70s is 210, so I got to make sure I put my 200 over here. And then I've got 200 and 500 and 500 and 100. Well, that's 1,300, and I've got my answer of 1,311. I'm just going to do a quick little estimate here. If I was to estimate this, I might sort of say, well, this is pretty close to, it's about 20 times 60 is going to be about 1,200. So it's got to be in the range of that. Probably add a little bit more there, but so my answer here is pretty close. I'm pretty happy with it. All right, the next one here is a strategy that sometimes we call the lattice strategy. I call it the box method. Some people call it the short method. It doesn't really matter what you call it. It's a pretty simple way of doing things. It's also the way that, ironically, some people in other countries, such as in Korea, this is how they teach really young kids to do multiplication. You're going to start with the box, and we're going to have our box here, and we're going to write 23 times 57. So each of the boxes represents a place value. So this, for example, well, you'll see. Let's get rid of that. All right, so I've got 20 times 5 is 1,000, so I'm going to write it in there. I've got 20 times 7 is 140. I've got 50 times 3 is 150. And then finally I have 3 times 7, which is 21. And then I'm going to add those up together, and I'm coming across this way, I'm going to have 1140. Coming across this way, I'm going to have 170. I add those together, and again, I've got 1311. Now, another way that some people do this is they simply write the numbers in the box. The first way I just showed you is probably the easiest way. And in this method, what you have to make sure that you do is you multiply across. So 20 times 7, 50 times 3, 3 times 7, and 20 times 5. So my 20 times 5, or sorry, my 20 times 50 is 1,000. This method, I'm just writing the numbers on the outside. My 50 times 3 is 150. My 3 times 7 is 21. And finally, my 20 times 7 is 140. And so we add those up again, and we're going to get 1,300 if we add all those numbers on the outside up together. So that's the lattice method. I prefer doing this one here. All right, so here's the long form way of doing this. This is a way that probably most parents are familiar with, where we take our numbers, we line them up. We do have to make sure that we pay careful attention to place value, because that's where students often go wrong here. And we're simply doing the same thing as we did in the lattice one. It's just a different way of writing it. And we're going to go 3 times 7. Well, that's 21. And then we're going to go 3 times 50. Well, that's 150. And we're going to go now, going to do this one. So we're going to go 20 times 7. Well, that's 140. And we're going to go 20 times 50. And that's 1,000. And we're going to add those up. And we're going to get exactly what we had before, which is 1,311. Now, all right, so there's one other slightly shorter way to do this. Show you this really quickly. Got my 57, my 23, multiplying by each other. So I'm going to start with my 3. 3 times 7 is 21, but I'm going to put my 20 up top. 3 times 50 is 150, but I got to remember my 20 there. So that's 171. Now I got to deal with my 20s, but because this is a 20 here, I'm going to put a 0 in the ones. So 20 times 7 is 140. But I got to put my 100 up there as a reminder. And now I've got 20 times 50 is 1,000, but I got to remember that I've got that 100 there, so I got to write down 1,100. And now we add my 70 and 40 is 110, so I got to carry my 100 over. Now I have 3 100s, and I got 1,311. So slightly shorter method of doing it, but it can be a little bit confusing here because you got to remember the place value of these numbers that you're holding up top to add in. So that's the long form. 3 different methods. Which one do you think is the best?